Hi everyone, my name's Jed Shlackman. I work as a holistic counselor and an energy healer and hypnotherapist. For this video I want to speak about the topic of what I'll call information echo chambers and fragmentation and division within society, as well as how consciousness itself on a more fundamental level fragments and divides or individuates itself. So if we look at human culture and society around us, we see a lot of fragmentation and division, people with different values and belief systems, different ways of looking at the world and interpreting and defining what is true, what is real. This presents a lot of challenges. People end up in conflicts with each other with a lack of compassion or understanding for each other, and also difficulty actually addressing challenges or concerns we have about our society, things that we want to change or address in some way. If we can't agree on the nature and details of what the situation itself is, and we can't agree upon ways to approach it, then it's hard to make progress or move forward in any way to reach the outcome that we might desire. So I'll go into some aspects of how this situation tends to manifest and perpetuate itself. And one aspect of that is the idea that information kind of reverberates through echo chambers, where we attach to certain filtered sets or pieces of information. So we select certain sources of information that we accept, others that we reject, and so we keep receiving more and more of the information that seems to reinforce or confirm what we're already thinking or perceiving or believing, while we're filtering out and rejecting information that might give us a different view of reality, that might contrast with or contradict the way we're seeing and thinking about things. You'll see that we all do this to a certain extent. Once we've attached to anything as being true and valid and quote-unquote right, then we tend to resist or push away anything that is presented with an intention to challenge us or contradict us. We might have various reasons or excuses we provide to do that. We might say that our own information sources are valid experts or credible, they're genuine authorities, and those other sources being presented to us are not credible or not authoritative. We might say that we have our own limited personal experience pertaining to a particular subject or phenomena, and we value our own experience and don't place value in other people's experiences. So we might filter things in that way, or vice versa. We don't have our own individual experience, so we just select some external source that we think is valid or credible and accept that as reality. And we might even ignore or neglect our own experience. We might not give enough credence to our own personal direct knowledge or experience of things if enough external informational input is provided to us repetitively that presents a different reality. So people can be, in a way, programmed to reject or deny their own experiences, their own sensory perceptions even, if there's enough social pressure or external input that pushes us to conform to that external reality, kind of the idea that if everybody else is doing it, if everybody else is thinking it, then we should too, even if our own direct perception or our own actual experiences might tell us otherwise. So looking at this idea of information echo chambers, both individually and collectively, people tend to attach to certain information sets. There may be a variety of competing experts out there. Some people will attach to this one supposed expert, other people will attach to the other supposed expert, and they'll kind of go into these different camps of belief system. You could look at them as cults or use other names to describe it, where it's kind of insular, where you're pressured or rewarded in some way to conform to a particular viewpoint and to reject or ostracize other views and other people presenting other views. And it gets really self-reinforcing in a way, where as long as you're immersed in those sets of information and those beliefs, and the idea that certain information is factual and other information is not, then you're going to continue to attach to or draw in more of the information that will reinforce that, and not be able to look at or investigate information that comes from some contrasting perspective that might lead to you shifting the way you look at things or see things. We don't really consider the foundation or basis of what we consider to be true or factual. If we start to look more closely at it, we might see how it's hard to actually definitively determine that something is factual and true, especially if it's coming from some source of information outside of ourself. So any news or information source is relaying information in some way, and you don't know the precise facts of how that came to be determined a fact. So the news reports that a particular government official stated something, or that a particular scientific study in a journal says something, but you aren't personally involved in investigating those phenomena. You didn't do that study yourself. You aren't there in the government when they carried out whatever act they carried out, or gathered whatever information they gathered. So someone might have said something authoritatively, but you don't know if they're truly an accurate authority on that. They're just in a societal position of power or authority, but that doesn't make their information itself to be definitively factual or valid. So it helps to have some sense that we need to have some amount of uncertainty or lack of definitive confidence that the things we think are factual and true actually are. We want to have some degree of openness to be able to receive additional information or input that might refine or reshape or expand our perception of reality and what's factual or true. Psychologically, it's not easy to do that, so we tend to kind of cling on to our own existing belief systems and identity, our own sense of what we think is factual and true that brings us some meaning, some sense of purpose or mission in our life, it feels good in a way to think that you're right about something, and if you believe you're right and someone else is wrong, then trying to justify your rightness kind of feeds your own sense of power, your own ego. Whereas if we get to a point where we discover that we were mistaken about something and we need to confront that and acknowledge, yes, I happen to be incorrect about that, I made a mistake. Our ego can be resistant to doing that. It can make us feel that we're somehow weak, that we're a failure, that we're not as smart as we thought we were, etc. So there's this psychological resistance to having openness with looking outside of our information echo chamber. But if we want to really expand our consciousness, it's essential to be able to do that, to not be trapped in a particular sense of what's true and factual, what's right and wrong, which information we perceive as valid and useful, and which information we perceive as invalid and needing to be filtered out or rejected. So we can practice having some humility, some uncertainty, some flexibility in the way we look at things and think about things, and being able to listen, to explore, to have a desire to learn more, and be willing to discuss something where we have different perspectives than other people. If our perspective or our information is actually more accurate, more true, then if we share that and express it in a dialogue with another person, then we're potentially helping inform and educate that other person, helping them expand their perspective, while the other way around could be the case, where they might actually have more accurate information than we do, and by going into that dialogue, we actually learn something that we didn't know or understand before. Either way, it's an opportunity to help both of those individuals involved grow their consciousness, to be able to ascertain or discern more of what is factual and accurate and true. If we shy away from having those dialogues, if we just tell ourselves, I'm right, they're wrong, my facts are the true facts, their facts are bogus facts, then it actually takes away that opportunity for learning for whoever might have been able to expand their understanding through that dialogue. So be open to having a dialogue, either by having the dialogue and by you demonstrating that you are more accurate with your information or your facts, you'll become more strong and confident in your belief or idea of things. You'll have more reinforcement or validation of your information. That could happen. Or you could actually help another person expand their range of information. So there's ultimately no harm in doing that. It's not going to make you dumber, it's not going to make the other person dumber, it's not going to lead you in a direction of loss of awareness or loss of information. It's just going to expand the ability to look at information and discern what's factual using your logic, your reasoning ability, and so on. So we want to develop our critical thinking capacity to be able to question how do we know or decide that what we think is true and factual actually is. Are there any limitations to our ability to access information or data? Are there any flaws or weaknesses in the logic that we've used to come to a particular conclusion? So it helps to recognize those limitations rather than pretending that they don't exist, pretending that we definitely know the truth and someone else doesn't. So this is a practice of refining our discernment, refining our logic and reasoning abilities, really looking more closely at how we perceive and determine what is fact, and how we assemble facts and organize them and integrate them to get a larger picture or understanding of any phenomenon in our world or in our life experience. So it's natural that division and fragmentation occur, but when that occurs, it gives us an opportunity, it presents a situation where we can consciously choose to work back toward more reunification, bringing our different perspectives and different facts and information back together to where we can reassemble it in a sense to create more wholeness, more integration of our awareness. So just as the original spiritual consciousness that we might call Source or God or Creator, in some sense fragmented its awareness in order to create individual identities, different sets of information to form realities in formation. There's the word form in there. Information actually does play its role in forming reality. The information coming here into the physical plane is actually informing physical structures, how your body assembles itself, for example. There's a field of information there that's telling this organism how to construct itself, how to create its form, distinguishing it from other organisms that have different information, different sets of data that they're using to construct their form. And that's how we have this great diversity of life and physical reality, because you have a diversity of sets of information being used to create form, to create identity, to carry out functions, etc. So it's not to say that fragmentation and division are something fundamentally bad or wrong. It's just a process, and the other side of the process is bringing things back together to a source of wholeness. So we can take steps in that direction in our lives and in our society to be able to integrate information, to not be trapped in separate echo chambers, but to actually open to all the information that might be valuable and useful to us to refine our perception of reality. I hope that this discussion has been useful and insightful for each of you. For those interested in holistic health and personal growth, I invite you to visit my website, phinsights.com. That's phinsights.com. And for now, I wish everyone a wonderful day. Namaste.